How excited are you about what the world is about to see?
We're very excited because, I've always thought that you get to rethink or redefine even what are massive current categories like search with new technologies. And so today is one of those days where we get to reimagine everything related to search with AI.
There is talk about Google facing a challenge in search really for the first time in decades. Do you think that's accurate?
Well, I mean, I'd say I'm most excited about starting a new race when it comes to thinking about search with Bing today. And we fundamentally believe that people should go try out Bing as a way to think about search differently, right? The fact that we now have the core ranker, right? It's only generationally that search gets better. And we have a complete new algorithm for core ranking. We have incorporated a new chat functionality in the context of your search result. And then we've also made the browser better by adding AI Copilot to it, right? So that all your web activity is enhanced. So I feel like we've now really taken a complete new approach, which I think is going to be very, very competitive.
When you ask the new Bing something, it responds in a natural, almost human way. And then you can follow up, and it can really quite quickly feel like a conversation with a human presence. Do you feel that when you use it?
Yeah, I mean, there are two things that I feel. Like, one is it's more of an answer engine right off the gate when I ask it, even a complex query. Like if I say, find me the ferry schedule to the San Juans, and it'll come back with an answer which has the results with the winter schedule summarized with even the WashDOT cameras and advising me to get reservations early both ways. And that answer is magical, right? So it's more like it's from going from being a search engine to even an answer engine. Then I can ask it further questions, to your point, right? It will be like having a real intelligent conversation, but still grounded in the search results and my query context. And then I can even take one of the documents that may come back, and I can use the Copilot to summarize it. So it's sort of it's bringing what I would have done maybe 3 or 4 different places into one flow.
So ChatGPT, if people are familiar with any chatbot out there, they're familiar with that one. Created a sensation when it was released. And my understanding is this new chat function in Bing the foundation is more powerful even than ChatGPT. Is that right?
That's right. So we are basically taking the next generation of the model that today powers ChatGPT and building it right into Bing.
Is the growth, a step process, or is it more of a takeoff process?
All of these are actually exponentials, because each time we have scaled these models, we have seen new emergent capabilities. So we are very excited about putting this next generation model. And by the way, the pace here is going to be fast. So we're excited about this next phase.
So emergent capabilities, this is a phrase that I heard, and then when I understood what it meant, my mind was blown. So this is something, correct me if I'm wrong, that you did not actively teach the machine to do, but that it produced or came up with on its own. Do I have that?
That's right. I mean, so one of the things that these large models have exhibited, right, which is going from, let's say, GPT 2.5 to 3 to 3.5, they've learned new capabilities, like coding, for example, software coding. So yes, these large language models are showing scaling effects where they show emergent behavior. And
you don't teach it to code, it teaches itself to code.
That's right, because in some sense, by training on diverse set of data, pre-training on diverse set of data, it builds up a general circuit that is capable of solving multiple tasks. I mean, the simple intuition for me is, let's say you have one of these large models, you train it on, let's say, a lot of math formulas. It gets good at math. But if you train it on all the math formulas and you train it on all of literature, it gets better at math. Why does it? Because fundamentally, like when you and I went to school, we learned math, we learned language, we learned history, and the general circuit got better. So a little bit of the same intuition that if you train these models on a lot of diverse data, you then can pick up new tasks.
So let's talk about trust, right? People use the internet to search for information. They want to rely on it. Can you trust what Bing now produces using chat?
First of all, a couple of things. One is we are grounding these results in chat using the search results. So one of the differences between ChatGPT and this model incorporated right into Bing is the fact that it's in the context of what you prompted it or the search query itself, right? So that's one. The second thing is we are taking safety as a first-class consideration, right? So we're building safety into the model, safety around the model.
How are you defining safety?
So this is about just making sure that, say something like harmful content, right? So you're making sure that you are in the pre-training phase and then even at the runtime, that harmful content is not getting generated.
So if you ask it to help you do something illegal, what are you saying? It will not respond?
It will not. And if it does, we will immediately do takedowns. So in fact, today in search engines, we have similar policies. There are always, the web is full of, the internet is full of lots of different content. And then we do have robust processes and tech checks to ensure that nothing harmful gets propagated. So the speed also will matter.
So with ChatGPT, the other concern, or another concern, is bias, right? It's trained on billions of words produced by us, which means it contains the best of us, but also potentially the worst of us. How can you even begin to control or police that in chat?
Well, I mean, it's the same thing. Again, in today, when you search on the web, you get what's available on the web. And so to some degree, we are at the end of the day going to take what is available on the web and make sure that any bias that is there, that is in the generative side of it, is what we avoid, right? So one of the things that we will have is if it is, in the pre-training phase itself, the diversity of data helps, but during the design side of it, right? Because that ultimately you prompted it, it didn't generate it. So the human is responsible ultimately for what they prompt and what they see and accepting what they see.
But so will there be guidelines or limits though? So if somebody prompts it to write a joke that might have been popular in 1975 but would get you fired today, for example, will it write the joke?
Yeah, and so that, well, first of all, I would even say this is where human agency is at a premium. You will always be able to trip any new AI model because you prompted it. So I think we should start with the responsibility each of us as users have to take. And yes, we will have many, many mechanisms to ensure that nothing biased, nothing harmful gets generated.
But there's potential in this new era that we're in for the AI to produce things that are inaccurate, potentially biased or hurtful, and potentially harmful. But it's on the user to know going in that if you prompt it, this may happen.
That's correct. But in all of those cases, it's just not about the user knowing, but let's take the inaccurate. This is where grounding in the search results matters. So that means it's not coming out of thin air, but it's coming from the search results themselves. Second, for bias, you really take steps during the training phase and post-training so that it's not biased. Or same thing with harmful content. Or even if you make a mistake and if somebody notifies us, what's the takedown policy and how fast is it? All of these things are the things that are true today in search engines, and we'll apply the same even going forward.
What's your biggest worry now that this thing is going to be available to the world at large?
I wouldn't say it's the biggest worry. I would say the thing that I feel, like here we are in 2023, if you adjust for inflation, right, the world's GDP is negative. So my biggest worry is we need some new technology that comes out of this very celebrated tech sector that starts driving real productivity. It's time for some real innovation. So to me, making a category that all of us use every day, right, which is search, to be more informed, do research better, that's a big deal. So therefore, I am more worried of us not innovating, or more importantly, getting out there in the real world, making sure that we're producing technologies that ultimately are driving economic growth.
So economic growth, you think on the whole, this is going to make economies stronger, larger, grow faster, and therefore create more jobs than it takes away?
In the long run, I absolutely think so, which is that, for example, I don't buy this lump of labor fallacy, right?
The idea that there's a fixed amount of jobs.
I think there will be more jobs. In fact, if anything, the more we democratize knowledge work, there will be more knowledge work. And the more we can take the drudgery out of knowledge work, the more productive we will be in the work we do, right? Whether it's sorting through email and email responses, or writing code, or searching, all of these categories, I think, can be redefined by AI.
But having seen what the AI can do with composition, with writing a social media post, with writing a cover letter, with writing a marketing plan, there are people making livings right now doing jobs like that. What do you say to people watching who are worried that what you're building might make the economy grow, but will disrupt their job and their life in ways they cannot predict?
First of all, it's a great point, and I think even there, I feel like what this does really is create the draft. But the draft has to be read by somebody, has to be edited by somebody, approved by somebody. It's just that the throughput maybe will improve, right? So it's the same thing in software coding. When we introduced GitHub Copilot, what did it do to software developers? It removed the drudgery of software development and made it more enjoyable. And of course, it'll also bring more software developers into the fold. I think that'll be the case even in all these other fields, right? So I think that some of the work that we do today will be helped with these draft creations. But at the end of the day, I think human judgment and humans editing what these AIs produce are going to be still at a premium.
Do you think it'll drive up wages?
That's a great point. I do believe it'll drive up wages because productivity and wages are related. So for example, one of the things that I love a lot about is this one tool we introduced called Power Platform. This is where a domain expert now can create an app or a workflow, non-IT people, right? So this is somebody in the front lines, maybe in healthcare and retail and manufacturing, are able to use, think about it, a natural language prompt to create essentially an app. What does it do to them? As soon as they go from sort of, being a frontline worker to having now created some digital artifact, they become part of IT, and that's wage support.
I have to say, I was surprised first by what the chat function could do, how natural it was. There is a human presence. I know it's not a person, but you feel it. I was also surprised, though, the limitations. There were times where it couldn't answer. There were times when it answered wrong. We corrected it. It said, oops, which is new. But it raises the question, is this ready? Are you confident for wide release?
Look, the only way for any new technology to be really perfected is to be in the market with real human feedback. If anything, in particular with AI, it has to get aligned with human preferences, both personally and societally in terms of the norms. And that's why we want to launch it. We want to have all the safety. We want to have all of the things that will make sure that no harms are created, but we need it out there in the real world. So yes, we do feel. The one other thing I would mention is the fact that it's incorporated inside a search, that design context matters. It's not, again, an open-ended tool. It's in the context of what you're searching for. And as long as it's useful in that context, I think it's going to be a great way for us to learn and make these AIs safer.
We have a major election coming up in 2024. We've had very contentious elections for 2 cycles running, and technology has been a major disruptive force. What's to say that this AI is not going to be a kind of geyser of misinformation, disinformation, since it can write posts constantly?
Well, first of all, what we're launching today is not about generating posts. It's about being able to search the content, and if anything, quite frankly, to be able to sift through it and get more of the authoritative content to be summarized so that you're not clicking on links that may not be as authoritative. So if anything, this is a tool to help with disinformation as opposed to create more disinformation.
Fair point to where we are today. However, one can see into the not too distant future where these bots are capable of generating essays, papers, whatever you, the user, want to have generated. Are you concerned about it being hijacked in a way that produces lies, spam, scams, all sorts of trouble of that magnitude?
And for sure we are, and that happens today. And so these adversarial attacks and the adversarial attackers can probably use the same technologies that we are talking about today to increase the velocity of their attacks. And we have to stay ahead of it, right? So in some sense, we already have technologies that detect what was generated by a bot versus what was fact-checked or by a human being, or what is an authoritative source who actually took something that was generated but then verified it. So those are all things that we already are going to be able to put in place. And so at this point, it's out. It's going to happen. The question is, can we as a society and we as companies that are generating products deal with these attacks? And the only way to do it is to be on the forefront of it.
So where is this all going? I know this is a major milestone today, and I don't want to get away from that fact. However, I do think it's also a moment when you can see a little bit into the future. You mentioned a co-pilot. Is there a moment in time, in our lifetime, where we are constantly moving through our day with a kind of artificial intelligence presence alongside us, helping us, guiding us, answering our questions?
That to me is, I think, what is going to happen, right? Which is, I think about this is not about the human agency somehow going away. In fact, if anything, it'll put more of a premium on how we spend our time, what we spend our time on, and where our attention goes. And if anything, these co-pilots, right, whether it's when I'm writing code, when I'm searching, or when I'm doing a document, I can stay more in the flow because the co-pilot helps me with some of the tasks. And so that, I think, is definitely the one pattern that I see. The other one is what you described. I think it's the age of intelligent agents. In fact, what we are just launching is a first version of it, where you have
intelligence agents?
Intelligent agent. Right. It's something that knows you, helps you with your everyday tasks. That, I think, is definitely something that we can look forward to.
I'm closing out here, but how close are we to general artificial intelligence, a machine that can do all the things a person can do?
I believe we're quite far from it. This is very early days.
Okay.
These are powerful models compared to sort of what was there before. But I don't think that we are talking about this as AGI at all. If anything, I think of this as technology that truly helps us with removing drudgery of everyday knowledge work.
And net, you think it will create more jobs than it will take?
I believe it creates more, I would call it, both satisfaction in current jobs and net new jobs.
And then I have to ask, and I sound a little bit silly, I feel a little bit silly even contemplating it, but some very smart people ranging from Stephen Hawkins to Elon Musk to Sam Altman, who I just saw in the hallway here, your partner at OpenAI, have raised the specter of AI somehow going wrong in a way that is lights out for humanity. You're nodding your head. You've heard this too.
Yeah.
Is that a real concern? And if it is, what are we doing?
Look, runaway AI is, if it happens, it's a real problem. And so the way to sort of deal with that is to make sure it never runs away. And so that's why I look at it and say, let's start with, before we even talk about alignment and safety and all of these things that one should do with AI, let's talk about the context in which AI is used. And the design choices we make. I think about like the first set of categories in which we should use these powerful models are where humans unambiguously, unquestionably are in charge. And so as long as we sort of start there, characterize these models, make these models more safe, and over time much more explainable, then we can think about other forms of usage. But let's not have it run away.
It's very clear why people would be excited right now. But your reputation as a leader is for having a tremendous amount of empathy as well. For the people out there who are not excited, they're on the side of scared. This feels like a lot of change very quickly with unknown consequences. What do you say to them?
I would say take some of what your real, like in particular with something like Bing and search, take your everyday usage. What is it that you expect from a search engine? And see if it's useful. Because here is the interesting data point. 1/3 of the time I go to a search engine today, I get results that are not satisfying. So if we can give you time back and you make it much more useful to you, then we'll produce something of use.
We clearly are in a kind of arms race when it comes to AI. It seems like everybody is coming out with new products this year. I think you're the first with a major announcement. Where is this going?
Well, as you said, it's a new race. And it's a new race in the most important software category, or the largest software category, in search. Let's face it, Google dominates it. We are thrilled to be here launching Bing to compete. And so we are really looking forward to it's going to rapidly evolve, and so every day, every week, every month, it's going to get better, and so we're looking forward to the new search wars.
Would you rather be you right now or the CEO of Google?
Well, I'm thrilled to be CEO of Microsoft.
All right, the car of humanity is at a crossroads. To the left is dystopia, to the right is utopia. The blinker is on. Which way is it pointing?
It's utopia.